Hello everybody. I know I'm a couple minutes early, so I'll let people show up, but I want to start out by addressing some of the questions that I got on Instagram. Speaking of which, I should bring it up. But I know that one specifically was about essential amino acids and getting enough of the essential amino acids on a vegan diet. So this person specifically said that when they plug their protein intake for the day and all of the food that they're eating into Cronometer, their overall protein is really good, but when they go to the specific essential amino acids, some of them are coming up with only 50% or 90% of their daily intake for the essential amino acids. So, this isn't a huge deal. I mean, it's not a big deal at all. I know that it's a really common misconception that a lot of people have that plant foods don't contain all of the essential amino acids. That is not true at all, okay? So, the thing about the recommended daily allowance, the RDAs of essential amino acids, is that how we came up with them is kind of comical. And I want to read this to you. This is an article that was written by, or it's not an article, it's a letter that was written by John McDougall to the journal Circulation in response to the American Heart Association's assertion that plants don't have complete amino acids. So he said, William Rose and his colleagues completed research in the spring of 1952 that determined the human requirement for the 8 essential amino acids. They set as the minimum amino acid requirements the largest amount required by any single subject in the study, and then they doubled the values to make the recommended amino acid requirement, which was also known as the definitively safe intake. By calculating the amount of each amino acid provided by unprocessed complex carbohydrates like starches and vegetables, and comparing these values with those determined by Rose, the results show that any single one or combination of these plant foods provides amino acid intakes in excess of the recommended requirements. Okay, and then it just goes on to basically say that a protein or amino acid deficient diet isn't really possible on a plant-based diet. So I don't know what the settings are on Cronometer, or if they're set up more for people on the standard Western diet who think that they need tons of protein every day. But you can see if you can fiddle with your Cronometer settings, because I know how good it feels to like get 100% on everything every day. But it's not a huge deal if you reach this requirement every day. So that was the primary question from Instagram that I wanted to address. I know there were several others, and I'll see if I can fit those in. And then let me bring up this one so I can get your comments on here. Bear with me. Thank you. I'm a little hot right now. It's very hot today, and then I of course get nervous always. Goodness gracious, there I am. How is it so hard to find myself? Gosh. Okay. Bring up the live chat. Another good question that I got from Instagram was, how important do you believe it is to follow one type of vegan diet? For example, high-carb, low-fat vegan, raw vegan, high-fat vegan, etc. And is it dangerous to fluctuate between the different whole food vegan diet types? Yes, I do believe that it can be, dangerous to fluctuate between the diet types. Specifically because fat affects how much blood sugar is allowed to be in the blood. So if you're eating really high fat one day and then super high carb the next day, that fat is still going to be in your bloodstream for the next 24 hours. So to be perfectly honest, it's best to be consistent. And it's best for your health to be consistent like that. If you risk running into like blood sugar dysregulation. I highly doubt that anyone would develop type 2 diabetes on a plant-based diet, but it's possible if you're prone to it in the first place. And then there are the questions of arterial health and heart disease and all of those things that processed foods, especially like processed oils, can contribute to. As far as like a completely raw food diet, you guys know I don't think that long-term raw food diets are a great idea. But it's like if you want to be totally raw one day, or for 3 days, or for a week, or for 30 days, if that's something that you really want to do, then sure, do it. But it's like cooked sweet potatoes and cooked food holds a really special place in my heart and the heart of many humans. So I'd say don't restrict yourself as far as that goes. Alright, let's get into these questions. Okay, so someone's been eating high-carb, low-fat for 2 years, 2.5 years, and their digestion is still poor. I'm not sure what kind of background you might be coming from, but I know that it took a really long time for my digestion to get a grip, especially after the starving, and then the throwing up, and then the eating huge amounts of random foods, and then the raw food diets, and then starting to eat cooked food again. So it really takes time. There are tricks, like drinking enough water, which I assume you're doing. If you've been doing this for 2.5 years, I'm sure you've heard that recommendation before. But drinking plenty of water right before your meals, eating simpler meals, so you can limit your foods to like maybe 5 different plant foods at a time. I know that certain foods really mess with my digestion. Like, I don't digest whole grains as well as I do sweet potatoes. I don't do particularly well if I eat tomato sauce. Like, if I eat tomato sauce, I'm gonna get indigestion. That's just the way my body reacts to it. But keeping your meals really simple, maybe even try mono mealing, where you have like just bananas for breakfast, or just bananas and berries for breakfast. Something like that might help. Okay. Someone's asking me how much I make, where I live, and what's my address. Gonna have to say, like, go fuck yourself on that one. I don't make that much from YouTube. It's around like 300 a month right now. The highest I ever made was 700 in 1 month, and gosh, that was really exciting. But it's also seems to be continually going down since YouTube changed their stats or their analytics and how the AdSense things. Because I know that like the Tess Holiday video that I made is blowing up again right now, and it's gotten 100,000 views in the past couple weeks, and I've seen like virtually nothing from that. So hold on 1 second. Yeah, so I don't know, it's changing right now. We'll see. I mean, YouTube pays me, they don't pay me much, but yeah. I have not heard anything about apple cider vinegar being bad for your thyroid. If you remember like the specifics of that article, if they named a specific nutrient or something that had to do with that. Okay. Tofu and seed cycling. I'm wondering because of the phytoestrogens in soy. We don't need to be worried about phytoestrogens. Like, phytoestrogens are in tons of food. I think the food that's the highest in phytoestrogens is beer. We don't need to be worried about them. In fact, phytoestrogens are really protective. They're actually really good for our bodies. They don't work just like estrogen in the body. All they do is occupy estrogen receptors, which can dampen the amount that our own estrogen is able to get into those receptors, which limits things like reproductive cancer or reproductive sensitive cancer or the growth of those cancers. So I don't think you need to worry about it at all, The only reason that you might want to like cycle the kinds of foods that you're getting is to get different ingredients that have different nutrients in them, different nutrient profiles, or to move between foods that have different levels of the anti-nutrients like oxalic acid or phytic acid or lectins. So you don't need to stress about phytoestrogens. Very good. Okay. Hey Lily, what are your tips for believing in yourself and making a huge change in your life when your family members aren't on board? I can relate. I know that when I went vegan and raw vegan, my family just like made fun of me more and told me I was going to die of protein deficiencies, and then culminated, I looked fantastic. Like, I looked and felt the best I'd ever looked or felt in my whole life, and then they were like, oh, she looks sick as shit, and then just laughed with themselves. So anyway, my advice for that, okay, really extreme advice. Blood is not thicker than water. Like, if your family can't support you, if your family can't be happy for you for doing things that make you happy, or for trying to improve yourself and improve your life, if they can't be supportive and kind, you guys know that I don't speak to my mom or my sister anymore. And that was necessary because they didn't support what I did. They made fun of me when I did something that made me feel happy and more alive and improved my health that had been in the pits. So that's the extreme advice. The more reasonable advice, if your family is reasonable and listens to you, is to talk to them. Like, have a real heart-to-heart. Like, mom, dad, sister, cousins, whoever, like, I'm struggling. I want to make this change for myself. I'm nervous to do it. I really hope that it works, and I want to do it right. Can you guys be supportive of me? Can I talk to you about my struggles? And hopefully they'll respond well. I mean, my experience has been, like, when I've reached out and made myself vulnerable in that way, like, I get a knife in the gut, essentially. And that doesn't feel good. That's something that you have to recover from. But my hope is that you would be well received if you came at it in a really genuine way that wasn't full of blame or resentment or trying to prove them wrong about what they're doing. I hope that's a good answer for you. How are oral contraceptive pills and painkillers bad for the biodiversity of your gut / bad for your body? Yeah, they can selectively kill off specific strains of bacteria. They can also put chemicals into your gut that are metabolized by bacteria in a certain way that can have a certain effect. Off the top of my head, I wish I had a better answer to give you right now, but that is a really excellent question, and I will try to find more information on that. I will make a note of it right now. I know that specifically it's like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs are the major problem. And I knew this at one point, but I don't have the specifics right now. And oral contraceptives. Okay. How do you clean your vegetables? I clean my vegetables with water. It looks like you're in Hawaii, yeah, because of the rat lungworm disease. So rat lungworm, it's this parasite. The primary host is rats. The rats poop out the larva. Slug eats the rat poop. Larva gets into the slug, slug crawls on vegetables, human eats slug, rat lungworm explodes into the body and just goes everywhere, primarily ends up in the brain, and then just wiggles around inside the brain until it starts to die and causes like tons of damage and horrendous pain, and it's potentially fatal. It's terrible. As far as I've seen, and I've been trying to keep up on it, the recommendation is to wash your vegetables with water. No findings have found that like washing them with soap or with salt water or with vinegar helps at all. The best thing they say to do is to wash them with water and inspect the vegetables, because you have to like physically eat the slug to get enough of a dose of this parasite for it to cause symptoms, right? So for a long time there was the thought that if you ate a slug trail, so like say a slug had crawled across a vegetable at some point and then you ate that unwashed, that you would be able to contract the disease from that. But it appears that very, very, very minute amounts of these parasites end up in the slug trail. So you might eat the trail and get like 1 or 2 of these parasites, and they're not capable of doing that kind of damage in your body. So you have to eat the whole slug. So like visually inspecting it is the most powerful thing that you can do to prevent this disease. Wash it with water, visually inspect it, both sides of the leaf, and, you know, hopefully we'll be fine. Someone said I'm perfect. I'm not perfect. There are a lot of things about myself that I love. I have a lot of shortcomings. Just ask Levi. I'm addicted to vegan junk food. How do I get back to craving whole foods? Well, so for a lot of these things, it's a matter of time and your mind forgetting. It's a matter of making sure you're getting enough of those whole plant foods. So it's like preemptively, not stuffing yourself, but preemptively eating to satisfaction and satiation of whole foods, avoiding the hyper-palatable stuff with all the added salt and the oil and the added sugar, and your taste buds will catch up within a couple of few weeks, and your mind will stop asking you for those. It's annoying. My thoughts on palm oil. Well, it's in everything, unfortunately. I do my best not to buy products with palm oil because it is so horrendous how it's harvested and what it's doing to the environment. I mean, added oils in general, like I stay away from the processed foods, so palm oil never really shows up in my food, whether or not it shows up in cleaning products or skincare products, stuff like that I use. I do try to do my best to get ethically sourced skincare products that don't contain palm oil. Can going vegan help with food allergies? Yes, it absolutely can help with food allergies. And the primary way that it does that is by changing the way our immune system functions and changing the way that the immune system is triggered. A big part of that is healing the gut so that large particles of proteins or other compounds don't make it into the bloodstream where it can irritate the immune system. And that helps to calm down allergies. The other way is that a vegan diet is anti-inflammatory, and the less inflammation you have in the body, the less reaction you're going to get to allergens. I learned when I was studying with Dr. Pam Popper, we did an autoimmune class, and, the first class of the autoimmune class, because it was, like 12 or 15 weeks worth of classes. But the first one was about treating allergies and asthma through plant-based diet, because when people who have allergies and asthma are much more prone to developing autoimmune disorders. I feel like I don't have a video on palm oil. Nutritional yeast. Ever heard of people with aversions or nausea after eating it? I mean, I know it's a really potent food like that, and it does have like kind of a weird taste, so it could be that you're just specific tastes, you don't like it. I also know that it does have a lot of high levels of certain vitamins, especially B vitamins in it, and I know some of those are natural, but I also know that some of those are like synthetically added to the B12, so that could be irritating you as well. The other possibility is that some kind of lectin or something that's present in the nutritional yeast is specifically an irritant for you, and your body is specifically sensitive to it. So it's totally possible if this is happening. Sorry, I got distracted. If this is happening to you, then I think what your body is telling you is legitimate, and maybe nutritional yeast isn't a food that you want to be including in your diet. It's certainly, like, you definitely don't have to eat nutritional yeast. Okay. What are my feelings on green powders? Green powders. I think they're a good food for people who, like, otherwise won't eat nutritious food. So it's like people who either have really low appetites and don't want to, force themselves to eat healthy food, or people who are like super picky eaters, or people who just don't give a crap about what they eat and eat a bunch of junk food. It's like, sure, have some green powders. Like, it's probably going to be an improvement. As far as if they're necessary to health, I don't think so. As far as are they better than actual greens, I don't think so. I know we do have a bottle of Vitamineral Green, the green powder, in our refrigerator, but I very rarely use it. And I got it in the first place to try to, like, infuse a little bit more greens into Levi's diet, because he's not always great about eating his greens. Okay. Someone said that Vegan Mommy Madness said she lost 13 pounds by increasing fat and protein from, I guess, the whole plant foods, to 60, 25, 15. Is this healthy long term in regards to improving insulin sensitivity? What is it? 25% fat would be kind of high. 15% fat is totally fine. I'm spacing on which one goes first. I'm so sorry. A little bit higher protein and a little bit higher fat is totally fine. I would pay close attention to your body and how that feels for your insulin sensitivity. If you feel like your blood sugar goes up and then you crash, then I would be mindful about that. And then come back to something that's more focused on carbohydrates with a little bit lower fat, possibly a little bit lower protein as well. But listen to your body. There's the possibility that could be the case. Protein powders and nutrition powders, are they safe to take while weightlifting? I think I've discussed this before. I definitely don't mind discussing it again, but protein powders rely on isolated proteins. Be that, from whey in the traditional protein powders, or like pea protein or isolated soy protein in the vegan stuff. And those isolated proteins do have the potential to spike your insulin-like growth factor, which can contribute to the progression and growth of tumors, as well as other issues, especially issues with like acne and skin stuff. Sorry. So I don't suggest taking them, but it's like if you're weightlifting and you want to really make some gains and that's something that's super important to you, then I'm not going to say that it's a terrible idea or that it's going to kill you. I've never used them when I weightlift, and I don't have much of a problem gaining muscle, but I understand that my body is not like everyone else's body, and some people do better on higher protein when they're weightlifting. Okay. Here's one from Instagram that got a lot of likes. It's the best tips for that final push to overcome anxiety and depression. And this is a loaded topic, don't you think? After I finish editing the posture series, which is like quickly becoming my version of hell, it's just a labor of love. Anyway, once I'm finished with that, I do want to start talking more about depression and anxiety and revisiting the eating disorder stuff, because I know that the videos that I did on those were like way back in the day, and there's definitely improvement in my video skills and my communication skills as well. So we're going to be talking a lot about anxiety and depression. What I see here is the phrasing that you're going to overcome it. And that is, I mean, it's never going to happen. And I say that it's supposed to be positive. Like, hey, take the pressure off yourself. Like, you don't have to worry about overcoming this. Because it's like, once you're over that hump and you're feeling, you know, happy and content and alive and energetic again, it'll always come back. Like, the anxiety and the depression will always come back. What's most important is to give yourself tools for working through that in a proactive way that takes care of yourself, instead of in self-destructive ways, or, you know, making yourself go numb with addictions or things like food, substances, drugs, alcohol, TV, sex, relationships, being codependent, like all of these things we use to try to manage anxiety and depression. But they're a natural part of life, and they come and they go, and they come and they go. And if you can take care of yourself through those times, like, I know that my self-care becomes really important if I'm feeling anxious or depressed, and my time for writing in my journal becomes really important if I'm feeling that way. And having people who I trust, who I can talk to about it, and people who have the capacity to be empathetic towards that is so important for getting yourself through that. So we'll be talking a lot more about the anxiety and depression coming up in the future. Someone asked what I use for sunscreen. 99% of the time I don't wear sunscreen. What I do is I get my sun earlier in the morning, and then I leave the beach or go into a very shaded place. What I usually do is just cover myself up. So I got a hat, I got sunglasses, I have a sarong wrapped around my shoulders, or a beach towel wrapped around me, and I just don't stay out in the sun very long, especially not the midday sun. Like, my friend and I, we went over to Hapuna Beach, which, if you've ever been here, you know is like incredibly bright and suntastic. And it's like, we went swimming, and then we laid out in the sun for probably 10 minutes, and then we went into shade. And then about an hour later, we went swimming again, laid out in the sun for about 5 minutes, and then we went in the shade. So it was probably only like half an hour of sun exposure altogether, and that was the max. I do have an all-natural sunscreen that I like. I think I've talked about it before. I don't remember what brand it is, but it's like if you go to a health food store or you look on Amazon and you look for all-natural sunscreen, and make sure that the active ingredient, the sun-blocking ingredient, is zinc oxide, then you have yourself a good product. You just don't want chemicals like oxybenzone or the nanoized particles that like sink into your skin. And you don't want all those weird ass chemicals, you know? Like Coppertone, no thank you. No thank you. Those products are also terrible for the water, so if you jump in the ocean right after that, it's like you're exposing coral reef to it, you're exposing the animals to those terrible chemicals, and they're not good. I recently saw a recipe for homemade sunscreen, and you can take like zinc oxide powder and mix that with melted coconut oil and other essential oils, and then let it harden and use that to spread on yourself. I haven't tried it, but if it's zinc oxide, it should block the sun. Okay, someone said, I see you eat fruit for breakfast every morning, but when I do this, I'm starving 2 hours later, unlike with oatmeal. Your thoughts on this? Yeah, fruit tends to digest faster than whole grains. So, I feel nice and full off of fruit, especially fruits that are really dense, like bananas. If I were just to, like, eat apples that are really, really fibrous, I would be hungry an hour or two later as well. Bananas work for me. If you love oatmeal and it really works for your body, eat it in the morning. There's nothing wrong with that. Or if you want to have fruit, but you know that you're going to be hungry like 2 or 3 hours later, just plan for that and have yourself a snack or have an early lunch, something like that. Someone said sun in the morning. Why do you sun if not for vitamin D? Well, I mean, it feels great. I like to lay in the sun because it feels amazing and energizing. But when I say, like, I lay out in the sun in the morning, it's like, you know, from 9 to 10 o'clock or something. And this close to the equator, that's a great time, especially in the summer. That's a great time to get the UV rays that you need to make vitamin D. And then if I do go out in the midday, you only need like 10 or 15 minutes on this part of your body to get this sunlight that you need for the day. So if my whole body is out in the midday sun for 10 minutes, I'm good. And I'm also like, I'm consistently getting sun. It's not like I live in a northern climate and I'm only getting sun for like 2 months out of the year, and then my body's relying on my stores of vitamin D the rest of the time. So it's just like, it builds up. Okay. You are welcome for answering your question, Danny. I like that you guys are having conversations in the comments. Okay. Levi gets all of his calories by eating lots of meals, and he eats more frequently than I do. He also... Like, when we sit down and on the what I eat in a day, you'll probably see that my dinners are usually, volume-wise, bigger than his. But that's because I'm a high-volume eater. Like, I eat big meals. He likes to eat smaller meals more frequently. Thoughts on leaky gut? Leaky gut is really tied into the amount of fat that you eat. It becomes especially an issue when there's partially or undigested proteins present in the gut, especially animal proteins or dairy proteins. But the main issue when you're dealing with leaky gut is the amount of fat that you're eating, as well as the types of bacteria that are living in your gut. Also is how often those bacteria are being fed, because if you are eating meals infrequently or you're not eating the types of foods that they like to eat, which is like, you know, the fiber from whole plant foods and other like oligosaccharides, and I forget the word for it, I'm sorry. But if you're not feeding your gut bacteria the food that they need, many species will actually turn around and eat the mucoid lining of your intestine, which can end up leading to that bacteria actually coming into contact with the actual gut lining, not the mucus, the gut lining, and then potentially interacting with the immune system, or proteins, undigested proteins, like getting into the blood, which can definitely cause a major immune response. Again, this is similar stuff that we were talking about with like allergies and asthma a few minutes ago. Leaky gut is a big part of that. So keeping your fat low, eating really fiber-rich whole plant foods to take care of your good bacteria and keep them well fed on that food instead of them having to munch on your own gut lining is very important with leaky gut. Someone's watching this at 1:30 in the morning. That's some commitment right there. Advice on binge eating. I have an entire video on binge eating. I think it was called Why We Binge, How to Stop. I highly suggest that if you want to watch that and hear what I think about binging. But I used to use binging as a way to control my anxiety and to make myself go numb instead of facing the truths about my life and myself that I couldn't face at the time. And looking back on it, like, I'm really grateful that I binged, because if I hadn't been binging, I either would have resorted to other addictions like drugs or alcohol abuse. I would have been a lot more promiscuous by replacing that anxiety repressing by, having with sex, sex addiction, something like that. Or I would have just I probably would have killed myself because I just couldn't take it. And so my binging was a way to take all of that awful anxiety that I felt, and I would, just shovel food on top of it. And then the reason why I was anxious was so easy to determine. It was because I ate all that food and I fucked up my diet and I'm gonna get fat, and that's what I'm worried about. That's so easy to deal with because the answer is just I just won't binge again. That's easy. I can do that. But if I had to stop when I was, 13 or 14 or 15 years old and think the reason that I'm feeling this way and I'm so anxious is because, my mom's not supportive of me and I feel so alone and I don't know if it's ever going to get better and I'm just stuck in a pattern of abusive relationships that won't ever stop and I have no control over it and my only option is try to get into foster care for no reason. That won't work. If I had to face all of that stuff when I was younger, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. And I think I would have ended up with a lot more mental health problems than I did. So, if you're gonna, get your binging under control or stop it, you have to address what the binging is serving you. How is it helping you? How is it helping you cope and stay alive and functional? At least mostly functional. Where have I been your whole life? Right here, I guess. I don't know. Thank you. There are some disgusting people in this chat. I'm sorry. I need to figure out how to get rid of people. Sorry, it's all those frickin' creep jobs. We have nothing better to do. Come on. My friend's mom just got diagnosed with heart disease and is trying to go vegan. Do you have any tips about diet related to heart disease? I don't. He does. So, this is all about heart disease. I mean, there's Forks Over Knives as well talks about it a lot. What the Health talks about it a lot. I think those are all great resources, but the thing about heart disease and a vegan or plant-based diet is that it needs to be high carb and you need to cut out the refined oils as well. If you cut out the animal foods and you cut out the refined oils and you just stick to whole plant foods, you're going to be golden with the heart disease. Excuse me. My toucan painting from Costa Rica. Stay safe. Okay. Who asked who out first? You asked Levi or Levi asked you? We met at the beach and I rode up on my bike and he was sitting under a coconut tree reading and I turned around and smiled and then walked away to go swim and I was like, well, if he jumps in the water, I'll talk to him. He jumped in the water, I swam over, he smiled, and then, I saw that his perfect teeth. I was just like, oh God, melt my heart. So then we just started chatting, and then he asked me if I'd like to, to see other parts of the island, pretty much, because I was on vacation. And then, I don't know, he picked me up like 2 hours later, and we went out, had a fabulous time. Fabulous time together. Please talk about fluoride. I watched this really scary documentary about fluoride. I think it was on Amazon Video, which I no longer have access to because who has money for that? So the fluoride, it's really terrible for us. If I remember correctly, it's like neurotoxic, and it's actually really bad for our bones and teeth. And people get all kinds of dental malformations from being exposed to fluoride. I had a friend, and she was like, she took her kid to the dentist, and they were like, oh, he needs to take fluoride, like, here, take these fluoride tablets to give to him. And she was like, God, like, I mean, I don't want to be the person who's like a hippy dippy, and then my kid ends up having terrible teeth because I didn't give him the fluoride. But at the same point in time, like, I know this to be horrible. And she was really conflicted about that, and I really sympathize with that that conflicted feeling, because it's tough to know exactly what to do in that situation. What I have heard from dentists is that, fluoride bulks the enamel of our teeth, but it also, that bulking process makes the pores of the teeth really, really small so that bacteria can get in, but it can't get cleared out. And so it can end up making worse cavities in the long run. And I don't think the dentists do this on purpose. I think they're just doing what their dental school told them to do, which is, give fluoride to kids and put it in the tap water. But as far as I know, like, it's not effective for what they say it's effective for, and it has a lot of downsides. So if I were to have kids, I wouldn't give them fluoride. I definitely don't include fluoride in my dental routine, or I drink fluoride-free water. Like, the water on the Big Island isn't fluoridated, and I'm really grateful for that. Does drinking a lot of water really help with digestion? It does if you drink it beforehand. If you drink it before a meal, it definitely will help with digestion. Now, you say, like, a lot of water. Who wants to define a lot? I would say if you had, like, this much water before a meal, this is like half a liter. You can drink a whole liter if that's what feels good to you. That's fine. But yes, it does actually help with digestion. What you shouldn't do is drink with meals. So if you're drinking with a meal, or directly after a meal, or within 2 hours after a meal, what ends up happening is that waters down the digestive juices, the gastric juices in your stomach, and it decreases levels of digestive enzymes so that they don't work as well on the food that they're trying to digest. And trust me, your stomach is very aware of what you're putting inside of it. Like, it's pumping out the right stuff at the right amounts. Try not to mess with that. Okay. I need to get my workout in today, but laying here is just so nice. Tell me to go do it. I won't. I'm not going to tell you to go do it, because you know what I did this morning? I woke up at 6:15, and I had the same thought process. I was like, yeah, I could go work out, but laying here feels so nice. So what I could do, and what I've done plenty of times in the past, is lay there while I beat myself up for being lazy and feeling really guilty about it. What I chose to do this morning was to just completely surrender into how delicious laying there felt. And I just stayed there, for another half hour or whatever, and just really enjoyed it. And it was beautiful. And I felt good. I felt better because of it. And I think my body just wanted to rest a little bit. So I'm not going to tell you to go work out. Stevia. Stevia. Yes. Wow, that's a lot of questions, you guys. I don't consume stevia. I think it tastes kind of weird. It's not one of those flavors where I eat it and I'm like, gosh, that hits the spot. Um, the stevia plant, you know, I've chewed on the leaves of a stevia plant before, and it was yummy. I didn't think it was bad. Yeah, sure, I would add it into some of my meals, like, you know, fruit or something, if I had a stevia plant available to me. When you start getting to things like stevia extract, then we have to start asking questions like, how is it extracted? What chemicals come along with it? And then there's also the question of how that sweet taste, so your body and your brain registers sweet taste is coming, but then there are no calories attached to it, and that can screw up communication between your brain and your stomach. So, I don't want to say absolutely like stevia is terrible for you and it'll just screw up your body and impede weight loss and possibly have effects on insulin levels because you eat something sweet and your body's expecting it, so it squeezes out some insulin and then there's no blood sugar for it to deal with. I'm not sure. I don't know that I don't know that it's worth it, you know? It's like, shit, that was a terrible answer. I feel like I really dropped the ball at the end of that. I wouldn't bother with stevia. That's just me. If you love it and if it's like enriching your life, go for it. Um, Someone said something about tips to quit coffee. Please. Yes. Okay, I assume it's tough for you to quit coffee because, you know, the caffeine. People have suggested switching to tea, and that's a great way to get like a lower caffeine hit while coming off of it. But then there's like that really nice earthy taste, and I know like, you know, they make the coffee replacers like roasted dandelion root, which just sounds fabulous to me. But I've heard some people really love that as a replacement. Um, Caffeine withdrawals and stuff, it's just a matter of living through it. And then I notice a lot of people who like come off coffee or, you know, stop any substance like smoking or anything. It's like they come off of it and they go through the hard part and then they just start again. And then they get re-addicted and then they have to come off of it and go through the hard part and then they start again. And I used to do that all the time, especially with junk food and stuff. But it's like at some point you just have to acknowledge that, like, either come off of it or don't. You're just going to keep punishing yourself. And if you can keep that in mind when you know you've gone through the hard part and it comes back to starting it again, then I think you'd be a lot better off. Someone I did just see suggested decaf coffee, and that can work, like, as long as it's good decaf coffee, because if it's like chemically decaffeinated, then it comes with its own weird carcinogenic issues. But even decaf coffee can have effects on stress hormones that aren't great. And then there's the whole, like, it stained your teeth part. So, I don't know. I say this. Okay, I want to address one other thing. Like, caffeine and teas, both of them, can impede the absorption of certain minerals. So make sure that if you have coffee or tea, drink them an hour before you eat. Okay, so don't have it with breakfast, especially if you're having like a purposefully iron-rich breakfast. Have it an hour before breakfast, and then have your breakfast, and it won't impede your mineral absorption. But I say all of that. Levi makes himself half a French press full of coffee every day, and I don't think it's going to kill him. I don't think it's a big deal. Although I think I think he does drink it along with his coffee. And that's no bueno, but hey, he's his own man. What's my thoughts on the potato-only diet? I think it could be like a raw food diet or any kind of like mono food diet. You can reboot yourself with that. But I don't think it's smart. You know, it's like you need a wide variety of whole plant foods. And why just potatoes? I mean, I get it. It's like some of us are really addicted to junk foods and like hyperpalatable foods and all that stuff, and so it can be a really great way to like reset your taste buds, especially. But goodness gracious, I would miss other foods. That would drive me crazy. I would just end up craving the other foods constantly, and then I would end up binging on those other foods and then feeling guilty about it. Right? Okay. Junk Beach in Hawaii. I have never been to Junk Beach in Hawaii. That's terrible. Okay. Bethany B. What are my... Sorry, maybe I shouldn't have shouted you out. Fuck, I'm sorry. Your thoughts on antidepressants. I was just prescribed them. Yeah. I know that I've said in the past I've made very dismissive comments about antidepressants and medications in general. And the reason that I make those dismissive comments is because antidepressants and many psychoactive drugs in general aren't tested very well, and the harmful side effects are kind of like glossed over by researchers who are being paid by the pharmaceutical company for whom they're approving a drug, and the whole thing just feels real squirrely to me. And then there's the whole thing that like a lot of people who go on, well, I guess I don't know if it's a lot, but it's well known that some people who go on antidepressants become very suicidal. And I mean, if that's not a slap in the face, I don't know what is. I think antidepressants are overprescribed. I think they are prescribed too quickly. I think their efficacy is questionable. That said, I know people who have greatly benefited from using antidepressants as a tool to get through a particularly difficult time in their life. But these drugs, specifically like SSRIs or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, they change your brain chemistry. And that is something that bothers me, you know? I never went on antidepressants, even though I've suffered or dealt with, lived through severe depression in my life. But I never went on them because part of me was thinking, you know, this is, if my brain chemistry, you know, it's like there's no such thing as a chemical imbalance. Chemical imbalances are a myth, okay? But it's like the way that my brain's working now, once I start taking an antidepressant, that creates a chemical imbalance. So by introducing this drug, your brain and your neurotransmitters are now working in a way that is reliant on that drug. So I do know that it's possible to taper off of antidepressants and get to a point where, you know, you can try going off of them afterwards. But it's like it's a tough journey, and it's a tough call. I definitely don't want to say that no one should take antidepressants and that they're never helpful, because some people do benefit from them and they are helpful, but I think they should be used as a tool in conjunction with other tools like good diet and sleeping plenty, mosquito, and having a good therapist that you trust, and having supportive people around you to help you get through this time, and, you know, really great self-care and respecting your own boundaries and respecting your own needs and getting yourself out of depressing situations. Because if you're, you know, it's like if your family is just terrible to you, yeah, developing coping skills. Thank you, Nivea. Nivea, I hope I pronounced that right. Yeah, developing coping skills in addition to trying an antidepressant if you feel like you're in a position where you really need them. Does that make sense? So I don't know what the circumstances were in you being prescribed these antidepressants, but my hope is that you all would have, whoever prescribed them to you, would have had a nice long conversation about circumstances and other things that you can do before taking antidepressants and in addition to trying antidepressants if that's what you decide to do. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Lily, what was your heaviest weight and what is your current weight? How long did it take? My heaviest weight was... Oh man, I got weighed, I think I was like at the gynecologist of all places, and it was like 155 pounds. I was like, fuck. Yeah. 155 was my heaviest. Right now, like, I weighed myself last week and it was 116. And it took like 3 years to get to that point. And I would go, like, I'd, suddenly lose 5 or 10 pounds and then plateau for a long time, or just, like lose 1 pound a month for a while and then suddenly lose 5. It was an interesting journey. And someone asked, conventional versus organic. Sorry. Conventional versus organic produce. I think organic is ideal, for the body, for the planet, for the farmers that are growing the food. Organic is best if you have organic available to you, and if you are currently at a point in your life where you can afford to treat yourself with organic food, do so, But there are times when I can't afford the organic options here in Hawaii, or the organic option just doesn't exist. And those are times when I have conventional produce. But, I opt for organic if I can. Studies have been kind of inconclusive about what's more nutritious. And those studies, too, it's like they don't specify, like, oh yeah, we went down to Farmer John's biodynamic, organic, Korean natural farming permaculture farm, and, and we tested his vegetables versus this Monsanto shit heap over here. Usually it's just like, mainstream organic versus mainstream conventional. And it doesn't show a big difference, but it's like, I'm sorry, but you eat some of that food from those really special farms where the farmers are just really in sync with the soil microbiome, and they're putting in all the necessary inputs from good sources, and that food, it looks amazing, it tastes amazing, and it's great. Oh, God. Okay. Hold on. I'm trying to get rid of this goat. So we don't need your shit in here. We really don't. Okay. Thoughts on sprouts? I just bought seeds to sprout. I'm so excited. I think sprouts are great. Yeah, sprouts are great. Hold on. The ebook is coming along. It's just trying to find the time to do it, and then figuring out, like, how to format it and how I want to sell it is, like, looming over me like a big black cloud. But back to sprouts. Sprouts are great. The sprouting process releases phytase, which is an enzyme that breaks down the phytic acid in nuts and seeds and beans, stuff like that. And that helps to get rid of some of that phytic acid, which is prone to binding to minerals. So it can make the minerals in those foods a little bit more bioavailable to you. It also speeds up cooking time. So it's like if you do decide to cook your beans after they sprout, they cook super fast. You know, oftentimes you can just like steam them for a couple minutes and they're perfect. You can sprout most foods, but there are certain foods, you know, like kidney beans that have toxic lectins in them that you need to be careful about. But yeah, in general, I think sprouting is great. And things, you know, like broccoli sprouts are just phenomenal for you. Just phenomenal. Do I use birth control? I use the best birth control of all, which is having had my tubes tied. Before that, IUD. I was on birth control pills for a while, but they screwed with my thyroid really bad. I was just like depressed and emotional and not well on the birth control pills. You know, like barrier methods, like condoms work great as well. Although I've done a video on natural contraception in which I advise, you know, like copper IUDs and or fertility tracking methods. If you have a nice regular cycle, you can use those. Something like Lady Comp. Lady, C-O-M-P, Lady Comp is awesome. I think that there are some like cheaper options now as well. But before I was a YouTuber, I was a massage therapist. Before I was a massage therapist, I was a chef. Before, well, no, dispersed between being a chef, I was a produce manager, a waitress. I've done all kinds of things. My thoughts on kombucha. That's a good question. Kombucha is a fun drink to have when you want something that's like fizzy and delicious and, you know, healthier than soda or soda water or anything like that. But kombucha, like, it's really high in sugar. Most kombuchas are. And while that really intriguing bacteria, fungus, synergistic shroom thing that floats on the top, while that's interesting, I have not been sold on, you know, these amazing health benefits. Right? Is Goat still in here? Oh, God. I kind of find Goat funny, but this is ridiculous. Kombucha. Yes, back to kombucha. But I think it's too high in sugar, and I think a lot of the kombuchas that are, like, marketed, you know, it's like either you buy them in bottles or you get kombucha on tap now. I just don't necessarily trust them. I used to brew my own kombucha, and it was delicious, and it's totally something that I would love to do again, but it's like it takes so much upkeep to just like keep it going, and I'm not sure if I'll do it again, but I know we have a local kombucha place over here, and sometimes we'll drink their kombucha if we go out and we're socializing and wanna be get a little contact high and pretend we're drinking something, whatever, we'll drink some. But it's like they brew in metal, which you're not supposed to do. Like, that was rule number one, in my opinion, was, or in my experience, was like, you don't brew in metal because kombucha is supposedly detoxing of metals, and so it can pull metals into the kombucha and then you drink it. It's not good. That's a truck air brake, it's not me. The other thing is that they end up carbonating it through a keg. And that's, like, why would you carbonate kombucha? It's naturally fizzy. Something's not going right here. Okay. Oh, God. Oh, God. Hold on. What are my favorite herbs and spices to replace salt? You guys know that I do use some salt. I try to keep it lower than, the standard American diet. But herbs and spices, it totally depends on the genre of food that you're trying to go for. So if you're going to cook like Mexican style food, you'll want like cumin and coriander seed. Smoked paprika can be really good. Cayenne pepper. Excuse me. And then you flavor your food with those. And then cilantro for an herb at the end is great. If you're doing more like Italian, you just make it really rich with rosemary and oregano, thyme, marjoram, whatever you like. I got distracted again. This is so hard. And then one of my new favorite tips, since we got the Instant Pot, which is a pressure cooker, is to like pressure cook the beans, and instead of, I just add like the tiniest splash of Bragg's Liquid Aminos as I'm starting the pressure cooker, and it just like drives the salty flavor into the bean without there being a ton of excess salt. And I love that because I end up eating a lot less salt. But like herbs and spices are just specific to the genre of food that you're eating. Hold on, I'm going to close this window because the other dogs are barking. Okay. Tips on how to fall asleep? Well, you need good sleep hygiene. So, speaking of meditation, sleep hygiene is about it's about your transition into sleeping. So, like an hour before bed, stop looking at screens. Like, turn off the TV, turn off the computer, put the phone away, and let your body start to adjust. It's also really important to have like nice low lighting. Things like herbal teas can be really helpful, especially chamomile and lavender. That's my favorite combination to have before bed. And then having a specific sleep routine. So like, around 8:30, I brush my teeth, take a shower, turn off the TV, go sit in bed, write in my journal or something. And then recently I downloaded the Headspace app, and I'm slowly growing to despise it just because I'm bad at meditating and it's not helping me very much. But simply the routine of like I put that on and then that's what I do right before bed. And that has helped me fall asleep much faster. Of just that routine, it's what I do before bed. I close my eyes, I take some deep breaths, and then just try not to have an anxiety-induced panic attack, which is what meditation usually turns into for me. Do you think technology is a good thing? Like, does social media make us less social or more social? I think it makes us social in different ways, and I'm not necessarily sure that those ways are better. I think technology is like anything else. It's a tool, and it depends on why you use it and what you use it for, your intentions behind it. It's a tool. I know that social media enriches my life because it's like I get to connect with you guys, and I'm just constantly so impressed by the caliber of person who comments on my videos and shows up for these Q&As and all that kind of stuff. So, shit, I got distracted again, you guys. So technology, we have to be mindful about how we use it. Just like food, food can be wonderful and nourishing for us, but if we strip it and whip it and add all kinds of refined ingredients to it and turn it into a cheese puff, it's terrible. you ever had to work with meat for a job when you were vegan or vegetarian, and how did you handle this situation? Yes, unfortunately I have. When I went vegan, I stopped working in high-end kitchens because high-end chefs are assholes who refuse to be understanding in even the slightest capacity. Very egocentric. Anyway, I stopped working in those kinds of kitchens, and then I started working in, like, health food kitchens or something. And a lot of the places where I worked didn't serve meat. Some of the places where I worked did serve meat, but they were accommodating with me as far as, like, I don't want to touch the meat, so please don't make me. There were a few times when, someone called in sick and I had to cover someone else's recipe and cook meat, and to be perfectly honest, I did that. But those kinds of situations and that kind of work environment is a big reason why I moved into massage therapy and YouTube, and now mostly just YouTube. What's your opinion on natural flavors, even if it's in things like tea and sparkling water? Well, natural flavors can mean a lot of different things. So, and a lot of times they can come from animal derivatives, so vegans need to be careful of that. I try to avoid stuff like that as much as possible, but as far as things like, sparkly water or tea, I think those are cases where, with Levi, he drinks the sparkling water often, and that's because, he had a thing for drinking beer after work, and that's how he relaxed, and then he switched from beer into sparkling water, and that's a much healthier thing to do, so I'm in full support of him consuming beverages like that. Also, it's better than things like, diet soda and stuff that he used to partake of. So I don't think stuff made with, the natural flavors is necessarily ideal. I think it's pretty unavoidable, especially if processed food is a part of your diet, and it's a part of everybody's diet. Like, I eat my fair share of processed food too. I just try to be aware of it and be mindful of what I include. So, is that a convoluted answer? It's like, it's all relative. If the choice is like enjoying something that has natural flavors in it, or denying yourself of something that has natural flavors in it, feeling guilty and deprived, and then resorting to having a diet soda, I would definitely just enjoy the stuff with natural flavor. Okay. What kind of music do you listen to? What's your favorite band? I listen to all kinds of music. I used to say I listen to all music except country, but then Levi listens to country sometimes, and to be perfectly honest, I've grown to like those poor bastards. One of my favorite bands is Iron and Wine. I listen to them when I'm, if I feel like overwhelmed or resentful, I just put on some Iron and Wine, and they like remind me what it's like to be a human. Why I want to be a human. Hold on. Some people are asking silly stuff. Oh my god. Some people. Okay, someone seems quite upset. Cami, hang in there. Switch to a plant-based diet and having terrible acne on my forehead. I don't eat processed food and low fat, please, please, please. Could be detox, it depends on how long it's been going on. It could be helped by manual exfoliation as well. If it happened like as soon as you switched, the probability is that it's detox related and that it will clear up after X amount of time. It just depends on your body and how much junk you had stored up in your cells and such like that. The acne series is there. I advise watching that. Hold on. My thoughts on dissecting and testing on animals for veterinary training. That's a tough one. I'll answer this question. I'm not trying to evade it, but like, I think what would be more awesome is if we could first get entities like the United States military to stop using live animals for training operations and stuff. That would be great, and I know that the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is working on that campaign, as well as PETA, I think. So, if we can get entities who really don't need to test on animals to stop, that would be ideal. Then you get into situations where it's like, for a school or an education environment, it's like they kill and dissect cats or something like that. And it's just like, it makes me feel horrible and I hate thinking about it. I feel like it would be possible to use computer-based models or something like that to do such things. That said, I'm not a veterinarian, and I understand that there's a big difference between dissecting a computer model and then, operating on a real animal. That also said, I know that there are a lot of animals in shelters that are not going to have homes. Those animals are going to be put down. If they can be done, do it in a humane way, and I feel like a lot of places don't do it humanely. They end up gassing them or something terrible like that, and that's a terrible way to die. It's like if an animal can be euthanized humanely, that needs to be the priority. As far as, I don't know if we can get around it, except for, I don't know if we can get around doing it in situations that are like an absolute necessity, like veterinary training. I don't know enough about that. I don't know what's available, and I would need to research to think what... Oh, God. I'm sorry. I need to do more research about what's available as far as alternatives to that. I think if it can be avoided, that would be great. Like, as much as possible. If you're asking about, like, being a vegan and wanting to be a veterinarian and having to go through those training processes in order to do it, that's a tough struggle. I would think, if I were in that position, I would probably end up doing it, and I would probably feel horrible about it, but if being a veterinarian was something that I really wanted to do, I would probably do it. That's not an ideal answer, and it's not essential. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Shit. Does that work? Am I still upright? No, I'm sideways. Hold on, I'm trying to do something. People are just getting too ridiculous. Oh, you're in timeout. Okay, I figured out how to put people in timeout, you guys. Now I'm just gonna have to spend the entire time putting people in timeout. You guys are just terrible. Yay for timeout. Oh, I got you. Sorry, you're in timeout. Not gonna deal with this shit. Okay. Okay. Ah, damn. Okay, hold on, let me, get back on here. Alright, you guys, we're gonna have to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. I gotta go pick up babies. My thoughts on food combining. I used to do food combining a lot when I was doing all raw food. Hold on. And it was really important then because, like, if I ate, if I ate something... Jesus. Sorry. If I ate a bunch of bananas and with oranges, I would end up getting a mean stomach ache, or I would end up getting, like, fermentation in my stomach or something. And so that was really important. Also important was keeping fat low earlier in the day. Eating melons by themselves. That was really helpful. I don't think strict food combining is super important, but as we kind of discussed at the beginning of this video, if you're someone who has, like, compromised or really sluggish digestion, it can be helpful to prescribe to food combining. Okay. Yeah, I use the crystal, what is it called? Like the Crystal Rock for deodorant. It's real cool. It works perfectly for me. Drinking chlorophyll regularly can also be really nice way to kind of, like, internally deodorize yourself, but as we talked about in the last Q&A, having chlorophyll every day isn't the best idea. I don't think, because it's so potent and it's high in copper. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get you propped up. I had such a good system, and then I had to put those people in timeout. Oil pulling. I oil pulled this morning. I don't think it's a miracle. Dear God. Oil pulling. So, I'm not sure if it's able to, like, heal cavities and stuff like that. So I don't know if all of the hype is real. The other thing is that so much of our dental hygiene focuses on killing bacteria in the mouth. It's like, you're always going to have a lot of bacteria in your mouth. That's just the way it is. Should we allow that bacteria to get into a good equilibrium with itself, with, like, probiotics as well as, so that the probiotics will kind of crowd out the bad bacteria. Now, I know that oil pulling, theoretically, because the outer coating of bacteria is, like, made out of fat, the cell lining is made out of fat, and oil is fat, and like attracts like, and so it just pulls all of that bacteria out of your mouth and you spit it out. I don't know about that. Hold on. You guys, I don't know how to make a moderator. I wish I knew how to make a moderator. I wish YouTube would, like, let you do a dry run, where you can just come in here and just play with all of the settings and figure this thing out, but I just don't know. Oh my God. Okay. Alright, we're gonna get ready to go. It's all on your controller page. What the fuck is that? Because all I see are 4 buttons, and none of them have options. All I can do is mute my microphone, make filters, choose whether or not to see. Oh, Stephanie, don't worry about Bonnie. Bonnie, she stalks me on, like, every single video as much as she possibly can. And, like, it actually gets kind of entertaining. Because it's like everything I say or do, she likes to make a big deal out of it and pretend like I'm blowing up the earth. Bonnie has problems. It's one of those, like, hashtag hurt people. And I don't know. I trigger her. I guess I trigger her. Yeah, see? She's not stalking. I'm a moron. Triggered. Yeah, hey, you know what? Bonnie, she's been leaving shitty comments on my videos for, like, months and months and months. She deserves a shout out. The amount of effort that she has devoted to me is genuinely impressive. Okay, well, she's 40 minutes early, so I'll be there at 4. Okay. Okay, bye. Okay, let's do one last question and then we'll wrap it up. That's an excellent idea, Backspace. Maybe I will make an alternate account. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. One question. What career should I study if I want to be an activist for the world and animal rights? That's an excellent question. I'm not sure that there's just like one. I'm not sure that there's one pathway that, everyone should go to, but whatever you choose to do should play into your passions and your strengths, and it should make you feel, well, that might be bad advice, make you feel more full at the end of the day instead of depleted as much as possible. Like, any work that you do is gonna have shitty parts about it. You just have to accept that. Now, as far as activism, I think what we're learning in the world today with social media is that activism can come in all kinds of forms. All kinds. So it's like we have people who do documentary filmmaking, and they're powerful activists. We have people who do YouTube, they're activists. We have people who, hold signs in front of SeaWorld, they're activists. What I'm really excited about is all of the medical research that's been coming out, and how the scientific community, at least some members of it, are waking up, and they have been able to inject a huge amount of really valuable, validating knowledge into the plant-based movement and for animal rights issues and for psychology and all that kinds of stuff. So, like, my friend who was here staying with me this last week, like, I'm really excited for her because she went to college and she has a really science-based pre-med background. And it's like, well, if you decide to go to medical school, the world can't have too many plant-based doctors right now. If you decide to go to graduate school, or if you decide to go into, like, psychology or something, we need more psychologists who advocate for healthy lifestyle and healthy diet in moderating our mental issues. And then I was like, maybe you can do a PhD where you do a study about something really specific having to do with, like, plant-based diets and health as a whole. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. So, it's a tough question, and ultimately it's up to you. I know I thought about going into, like, environmental science or something. And, I mean, you guys know, I didn't actually go to college, and I didn't do that because of a lot of reasons. It's the subject of its own video, or should be. But I thought about studying environmental studies or, conservation biology or something like that. But it felt, knowing what I knew about climate change and how quickly the world was already barreling towards the future that we're still barreling towards, I felt like I didn't want to devote 10 years of study to get a degree where then I would get a job cataloging the way that the world is going downhill. So, I don't think there's any right answer. It's hard for me to say that. But, I also understand that, like, people have to make money and support themselves. Not everyone can be a destitute YouTuber. Okay, so that's gonna about wrap it up for us. Dear God. Okay. By the next time we do this live stream, I'm gonna figure out how to get a moderator. I'm gonna figure out how to deal with these people. Anyway. Thank you. I'm glad that I've had a positive impact on at least some of your lives. Other people just seem to be going crazy. Okay, yes. And the whole live stream is going to go on my channel, so that's all good. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and making the effort to be here. It means a lot to me. I really enjoy all of you so much, and thank you all so much about shit. Thank you all so much for all of the lovely Thank you all so much for all of your lovely comments and your support that you always leave on my videos. It means the world to me. Keeps me going. I appreciate it. All right. So thank you again. Bye, guys. Yes, I want to end.